to adjust their marketing strategies and still find a way to reach consumers. So we're really excited to hear from some great marketers today from Cadenwood, The Skills, Tracksmith, Noble, and TB12. We have a short but sweet lineup of panels, so be sure to stay tuned for the whole session. Before we begin, just want to provide an overview of the Cisco WebEx platform. We definitely will recommend using our Google Chrome extension, which you can download really quickly instead of viewing on your browser. And we really encourage you all to engage with today's speakers and submit questions using the Q&A function on the right-hand panel to submit those throughout the sessions, so that way we can answer those for all of you tuning in from home. And it's not really to invite a colleague to join you. Just feel free to forward them the same URL that you use to log in so they can view today's sessions as well. And if anyone's not available during today's live cast, you'll be able to view today's series on demand. We'll send a follow-up email with this information after the webinar, or you can view today's live cast on our Brand Innovators YouTube channel. And for anyone looking for a dial-in number, today's session can be dialed into and listen to just audio. You just open the same widget as the Q&A and choose audio connection. And for the best viewing experience, we recommend choosing the grid views. That way you can see all of the speakers at once. And be sure to engage with us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We always love to hear from you guys. So use the hashtag BILivecast and let us know what you're thinking. And a huge thank you to our Cisco WebEx sponsors for being the official technology partner of Brand Innovators Virtual Summits. We're going to play a quick video from Cisco right now. Thank you to Cisco WebEx for being our partners. And now we'll get right into today's first panel. I'm thrilled to introduce to our virtual stage Tracy Mason, the VP and GM at Cadenwood, and Dan Goldstein, the VP of Marketing at The Skills. And their session will be moderated by Doug Schabelman, the CEO of Burns Entertainment. Welcome, Tracy, Dan, and Doug.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are
Thank you?
I'll kick it over to you guys and tune back in at the end.
Sounds great. Hi, guys. Doug Schabelman. I'm CEO of Burns Entertainment. Really excited to be the lead moderator for this exciting panel. Introduce our two panelists. Tracy Mason is the VP General Manager of Cadenwood. And Dan Goldstein is the VP of Marketing at The Skills, and I wanted to introduce them and let them give a little quick background on themselves as well. Tracy, how about we start with you?
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm Tracy Mason. As Doug said, the VP General Manager of Consumer Products Business here at Cadenwood. I've spent many years in the CPG brand marketing industry on brands like Dial and Right Guard. While I was on Right Guard, we did a deal with the NBA as the official deodorant of the NBA, and also partnered with NBA athlete Chris Paul. And then I've been with Cadenwood since the beginning, early 2019. We're a privately held consumer products company focused on building great brands in the CBD space. And we launched our first brand last year. The brand is called Level Select. And we did that behind the support of professional athletes, which we now have 5 on our roster. So we have Ricky Fowler from the PGA, Carson Palmer from the NFL, Steve Garvey from the MLB, and Myers Drysdale from the WNBA, and Henry Cejudo from the UFC. So looking forward to sharing some of our experiences today.
Great. Dan?
Thanks, Doug. I'm excited to be here, and thanks, Tracy, as well. Like many of you, I've spent a good amount of my career starting on the agency side and then moved over to the brand side to focus as a brand manager. I joined an organization called The Skills in early March, pre-COVID. And the reason why I say pre-COVID is we are building a company. We've launched on September 1st an organization that when we talked to Doug and Tracy, they both said, how great is it that your product is an e-learning platform for how to learn sports? And I like to introduce our product in that way because we have done something that we think no one else in the industry has had. We've built an organization where consumers and students can actually learn from some of the world's best athletes. Before I tell you who's on the Skills as a platform, the reason we did this is for two real reasons. One is there's so much research in this world that shows when young children participate in sports, it leads to a positive impact for the rest of their lives. So better graduation rates, better grades in school, better jobs post-college or post-high school, and it really translates to long-term success. And the second thing is we really feel like the world's best athletes are great teachers at other things outside of sports. So not only can they teach us how to kick a soccer ball, they can also teach us how to better set goals, how to overcome adversity, and how to be better teammates and better leaders. So we launched on September 1st with complete online courses taught by great athletes such as Shaun White, Maria Sharapova, Carrie Walsh Jennings. We launched a course with Larry Fitzgerald about a month ago. We are launching a course with Michael Phelps in about 2 to 3 weeks from now. And then we have a course coming from Megan Rapinoe right before Christmas. So I'm super excited to talk a little bit about my experience at the Skills, before the Skills in the sports world as well. And then chat with both Doug and Tracy today. Thank you.
That's good, good intros there. And hopefully everybody gets a pretty good indication of the experience level that our two panelists have. And I think I'll start out, by asking a question, and it's a question that I ask all the clients that we work with. When you're considering what talent to represent your brand, what top attributes do you look for in a partner? So what is it? What are the key points that you look to? Dan, I'll start with you when you're looking, because obviously you have a lot of current experience right here. So let's start with you right there.
Absolutely, Doug. When we actually choose when we choose athletes to bring onto our platform, we look for two things. One is, are they actually great at what they do? We're an educational platform. We want these athletes to teach some of their skills. For them, it's important that they are standalone as an expert at what they do. When we listed out the 5 or 6 athletes that we work with right now, they are all recognized as being great at their skill and at their sport. For us, that's all about credibility. We feel like it's important to make sure that our athletes are credible in the space and credible with their teaching. But more importantly, we look for athletes that stand for something outside of just being great at the sport. Michael Phelps talks so much about overcoming or about mindset and overcoming mental challenges. Shaun White actually is a great teacher at creativity and how to think outside the box. Maria Sharapova is a phenomenal teacher of how to be confident in yourself and how to believe in yourself every day. When we actually choose our athletes' skills, it really touches on those two key areas. Are they the best at what they're doing? And do they have a skill outside of their sport they're teaching? The other thing that we really focus on, and this is important for our business, is we're not just looking for athletes who want to upload a video to Instagram or Twitter or TikTok, whatever they're on, and throw a hashtag ad at the end of it. For us, we try to find athletes that want to truly be partners. They want to leave our product feeling like it's something that they actually care about, they're passionate about, they want to be a part of it. So for all of our athletes, they are incredibly involved in the entire process. They like to give us feedback and thoughts on not only their courses, but where the business is going. And for us, it puts a little bit of onus on us that we have a responsibility then to maintain their brand image, think about what they're trying to do outside of our business, and make sure that our product and our business is helping them essentially manage their personal brand that's so important for all athletes and influencers alike.
Tracy, love to hear your take on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to, I think, some of the things that Dan mentioned as well, all critical. So most importantly for us, we really want the partnership to feel authentic and not forced. When you find that, I think authentic partnership within an athlete can really do wonders for your brand. And so for us, we've really partnered with athletes who have started using CBD as a part of their regimen who are big believers in the product and what it can do for them. And that was really our focus for starting to find, the right partners for our brand, because we wanted to make sure, especially in the category that we work within, that it was coming through authentically. And that really goes a long way with consumers, especially in this CBD category where it's still needing to build trust and transparency and credibility with consumers. So our professional athlete testimonials have really been extremely helpful in bringing new users and consumers into our brand and bringing that that trust to this category that we're really trying to build and take a leadership position in. And then, do you have a question, Doug?
Well, no, that's interesting because I guess keeping with this theme, and we see it, happening more so than ever, is how important collaboration can be, and how important collaboration and partnership in terms of putting forth the messaging that your brand is looking at. So how important is collaboration to you? Is it a little bit more of you want to get the brand's voice out there first and then have the talent collaborate and add to it? Or is it really more so a collaboration from the very beginning with who you're choosing?
It's 100% a collaboration from the beginning. And one of the benefits we have as a private company is that in these partnerships, we're able to offer equity to these athletes. And so they essentially become owners in our company, and they feel even, really more like they want to collaborate. They own our success with us, and they want to be a part of it. They call us up and say, what can I do next? Are there other PR opportunities, other media opportunities? And we find that that's really beneficial, and that really helps. And in terms of thinking about, do we give them something to say from our brand voice versus their voice, and how do we bring that all together? Because again, going back to the authenticity, that we want to make sure it comes through. And for us, it really depends on the athlete. So Steve Garvey has been with our brand since the very beginning. He was involved in helping us develop the first formulas, and being involved from the start, and being the pro that he is, he's always thinking about communicating in the brand's voice and collaborating with us to do so. But then someone who's newer to our roster, like Henry Cejudo, who's a UFC fighter, he has such a personality, and he's known for it with his audience. His nickname is King of Cringe, and he wears that proudly. And so you're much better off with him to kind of give him some creative license and let him run with it. You give him a few, key points to hit on for the brand, and you collaborate up front, but then you let him run with it, because that's what his following and his fan base is really engaged in, is that unique brand that he's created for himself. So they want to see that stand through. And so you find a way to connect that all. But I think, it's important. And for us, it kind of depends on who's the athlete and what's the form of media, as far as where that brand voice comes in and where their own voice comes in, and how we collaborate across all of that.
Dan, it seems like that's a key component for what you guys are doing. Give me your response in terms of the collaboration and the voice.
Absolutely. Everything we do at the Skills is a complete collaboration between us, our athletes, and their teams. But we also really try to loop in their fans and other individuals in their sports as that other third element of collaboration. For us, what we really try to do is talk to our athletes, understand why they want to coach on our platform. For us, we believe the biggest part of our business, it's not about the skills. It's about Michael Phelps. It's about Larry Fitzgerald. It's about Maria Sharapova. So our first conversations are understanding why they want to work with us, why they want to partner with us, and what insights that they have in their minds that they want to share with up-and-coming athletes in their sports. It starts with a conversation about what they've learned throughout their career, what their coaches have taught them. We then feed in insights from customers and prospects, from social listening, to understand what people in the industry and that sport are trying to learn. And then it's a constant dialogue back and forth to craft the right course. The second thing we do, though, from a marketability standpoint of our course, is our marketing team does not actually present back a plan to the athletes and say, we want you to post A, B, and C in social media, or do X, Y, or Z. It's an ongoing dialogue. We start with a rough template and a framework of what we're trying to achieve. They know their audiences and their fans much better than we do. And we try to tap into them to make sure whatever they put out in the world from our business is authentic to them. We want it to fit into their news feed. We want it to fit into a conversation that makes sense for them. We want them to feel pride in what they're actually sharing and what they're talking about. And from an overall business standpoint, the performance shows. I think I can speak from before the skills and other roles I've had. When you ask an athlete or an influencer to upload a 30-second TV spot to Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, it doesn't perform well because it's not authentic. It doesn't speak to them. And what we really try to do is to ask them to take their overall feelings, their overall social approach, and how they can build the skills into their existing social media strategy.
Well, it's interesting that you kind of talk about that and get into a little bit of the social media strategy too. And enough with the softballs. Let's get into a couple of the a little bit more meaty ones too. But it's really interesting that you guys both have very similar perspectives and really successful ones as well. But I'll get into a little bit more of the meat, and I talk about, with social justice and social injustices becoming such a prevalent part of society right now and becoming a more important aspect of how brands are putting forth their messaging. How much of a factor is that when choosing a brand ambassador or looking at, hey, what's our strategy going to be? And then if we're going to be working with somebody, where does that fit in? Tracy, I'll start that one back with you on this one, if that's okay. Where does that take you right now with the current state in the country?
Yeah, I think, first, it's really great for athletes as role models to take a stance for and stand up for what they believe in. I think they have a great platform to do that, as we all know. And as a brand partnering with athletes, this is something you have to think about. You want to make sure, they're good people who can go and reach beyond and think beyond their sport or their ability to be a professional athlete. So it is important. We certainly don't direct them to do something or not do something, but we do encourage and like for all of them to have their own beliefs and platforms that they can then stand on to use.
Dan?
Yeah, I will say before I talk about the skills, I think I am personally a huge fan of what went on with the NBA this summer. So thinking about how social justice was truly just written on the court floor, how different athletes pushed to turn stadiums into polling stations. For us, we look for athletes that have a stand. They stand for something. And while I don't want to dive too far into social justice, I think the first thing that all of our athletes stand for is they believe education has an impact on the rest of our lives, that the more educated you are, the more access to sports and team environments you are, that you're more likely to stand for something and have a belief in something. So that's really important for us. The second thing that's actually a part of our business is one of the big reasons that Larry Fitzgerald chose to join our business was our mission. So thinking about how do we get more kids involved in sports and how do we bring education around sports and how to play those sports to kids that normally would not have access to those sports. So one of the many things that we're working on in our business is we realize that there are certain sports that are not relevant to different demographics, and there's no way of getting around that there's high cost to play certain sports. There's very high cost to coaching. Our goal, and one of the things that we're working on with 2021, and Larry's actually helping us with this, is thinking about how do we drive more participation of sports at a youth level, and how does our product help bring more access to kids that couldn't afford our product or couldn't afford access to a traditional coach. So we are thinking about things like partnering with different organizations, looking at places like Boys and Girls Clubs, different charities that are important to our different athletes, and making sure that when we sell courses to audiences that can afford these sports, we're also trying to find inroads ways that we can actually give memberships to youth and students that normally wouldn't have access to a football coach. They definitely would not have access to a pool or the ability to learn how to swim, and expose them to these athletes. So if it's something that they want to learn from, they can learn through a device and then take that and translate that into the real world.
Interesting. So let me, I'll take a little bit of a different, piece in terms of approaching how your brands have evolved and how you're making some of these choices. You both worked elsewhere in somewhat different capacities at different companies. And I wanted to get your perspective on your experiences that you've had previously and how you've taken some of those, various elements, successes, failures from those other places that you were working at, and how you really approach building your brands right now with athletes, and how you're building out the sports marketing aspect of your respective organizations. Dan, I'll let you jump in on this one.
Absolutely. So for everyone else, Doug and I connected. I didn't tell them this story before, so it'll be brand new for you guys to hear. My first internship when I was 21 years old is I worked for a minor league baseball team. I worked in a promotion organization in New Haven, Connecticut for a very small team. And my challenge was getting more consumers at the stadium and getting them to want to come. We ran anything from figuring out promotions, get people in the door, think of dollar beer night, to literally running things on the field in between every half inning where I dressed up like a big brown bear and chased their center fielder off the field after every fifth inning. For us, though, the big takeaway that I learned in that instance from a sports marketing standpoint, and it was really helpful because this was not Yankee Stadium. You're not in front of 80,000 people. You're in front of maybe 2,000 people. Is you have to understand what people care about, what makes them laugh, what makes them show up. You have to entertain them, and you have to get them feeling excited about what they're doing. And when you can do that, they'll want to come back. They'll want to spend more money. They'll want to be a part of your business. And for us, that's what we're trying to do with the Skills. For us, it all comes down to building the right product, getting people to see the product, making sure they enjoy it and they love it. And that's the real key important thing for us as our business is our athletes are the gateway. For us, the product is access to those athletes and helping people learn. And it's strangely enough what I learned dressed as a brown bear running around for the New Haven Cutters in center field is if you can make people love what you're doing and have a good time, they're going to become loyal. They're going to want to spend money with you, and they're going to want to be excited for what you have to come in the future.
Tracy?
Yeah, I think, across all of the different experiences I've had working in sports marketing, across all the brands that I've worked on, we talked about this a little bit, but I think one of the things that was a good learning early on for me was being a good partner back to the athletes and supporting them in what they're doing. And Dan talked a little bit about this as well. But for example, on the Right Guard brand, when we partnered with Chris Paul, he did an annual charity event in his hometown every year. And while we were partnering with him, we would attend that event and be help in sponsoring it as well. We'd go and participate in all of the events. We'd participate in the bowling tournament. If you know Chris Paul, he's a huge bowler, and that was so important to him. So that was just a good way to not only further develop the relationship, that personal relationship when you get to be with them in those environments, but also being with them in their own environment, supporting their own causes, really goes a long way in building that partnership. And so I think that was a key learning early on in working in kind of the sports marketing and working with professional athletes. And then I think some other things you learn along the way, which has shaped a little bit of what we're doing here at Cadenwood today, is that obviously every athlete doesn't resonate with your entire consumer base. And so that's why we felt like it's important for us to build a broad range of athletes. We span multiple sports, and we're looking to continuously build on that. So it's kind of working through those various things and learning along the way to figure out how you can continue to optimize working within these partnerships.
Interesting. So, that kind of takes you into the next, about the past and now into the present. And it's come up on the chat, but it was one of the questions I wanted to bring up as well is COVID-19 and the effects and impacts that it's had on some of the experiences that maybe you were going to bring to the table or activations that your brands were going to participate in. How has it impacted, and are you seeing, a big impact and you've had to make a big pivot? A lot of my clients right now with a lot of the talent that we're working on, we're seeing shoots being done at home. We're seeing talent maybe interested in working in different ways than maybe they were before. So how's that impacting your marketing strategies, and what do you see moving forward for your brand in the near future? Tracy, I'll put that to you.
Yeah, so COVID has definitely created some challenges from a marketing perspective. It's brought some limitations for sure, but we've worked around it. We found some opportunities within it to trying to make the best of it. But it has limited some media, PR, interview type opportunities for our athletes that want to go out and do those types of activities for us. But when it was time to do our TV shoot a couple of months ago, fortunately, we were able to split that into, 1 day shoot per athlete and go to, Doug, just like you mentioned, go to their homes or settings near their homes and catch them for the shoot. That allowed us to pull it all together at the end. Fortunately, our script was kind of perfect actually for that type of environment and going and shooting the athletes within their home environments anyway. So it didn't slow us down in terms of getting that, getting out on TV and getting that national broad reach media that we were so anxious to get for our newer brand that, as I mentioned, just launched about a year ago. So for us, we were able to find ways creatively to work it out that kind of turned in our favor in a sense, I'd say, as we're really pleased with how the creative came out. And then an opportunity it really brought up for us, COVID brought up for us the fact that the media landscape had changed so much and networks were looking at their plans, what were they going to do? So it brought up an opportunity for us with a relationship we have with Discovery Networks to do, again, going back to we're a private company and the benefits of that, we were able to do a swap, an equity swap for media deal. And so now we have media set up in place to run our spot on for the coming year. So, some challenges, certainly some, trying to find some ways to work around that, trying to find some opportunities in it. We feel good about where we're going and just being mindful of the landscape moving forward and continue to work within that and around it as much as possible.
Dan, I know we talked about it a little bit, but your business, obviously the model seems to be, I don't want to say it's perfect for the situation, but tell us how it's impacted what you're trying to do and what you're trying to do with some of the athletes.
Yeah, I will say very similar to Tracy, we had some huge challenges early on. We were set up to do multiple shoots throughout the spring and summer. Because of COVID, we had to actually postpone those and rethink how our business operated from a production standpoint. One of the best things that actually came out of this business or out of COVID for us is we found out how to make our production shoots a lot leaner. So we really asked who needs to be at a production shoot and who doesn't need to be at a production shoot. We're fortunate that our production team was built from big studios experience. We are fortunate that our athletes are the only people that are really the talent at the day of the shoot. So for us, it's easy enough that we can have an athlete in a studio. We can be safely distanced. Everyone else can be masked. We figured out using actually a lot of third-party help, how we can be really safe and reoperate our business. The second thing we've done, though, is we've rethought how we do remote shooting. So how can we send out iPhones, lighting and microphone rigs to athletes and get additional content when needed? So from a production standpoint, it has had its challenges, but it's also had its blessings because it's made us rethink how we operate as a very early on company. From a marketing standpoint, there have absolutely been some challenges. We've had to rethink through our messaging strategy. So like everyone else, everyone thought maybe COVID would be a few weeks thing and then a few months thing. And now we're realizing it's a much longer thing. And for us, we've had to tweak our launch dates or our company of when we launched. We've tweaked our launch messaging a little bit from this is how you prepare for your upcoming volleyball and football seasons to a message that's realistic that says you probably may not be playing volleyball or football this year. In lieu of it, here's how you can learn some new skills for when the seasons may start up again. And then the third big challenge, similar to what Tracy said, is the media landscape is very different right now. In the past, and from past experiences with other companies like working with Major League Baseball and at Reebok, your opportunity is to use the media to tell your story, to use your athletes to talk about what they're doing in the press. Between COVID and the election, that hasn't been as much of an opportunity, I think, for all advertisers right now, because we all know our news cycle is full of COVID and the election, which limits brands, specifically smaller and newer brands, opportunities to tell their story via those channels.
Interesting. And then, along, I guess, in taking the COVID-19 and the impact it's had, on your businesses and things, the ratings of professional sports, college sports, you're seeing a decline. And, there are all sorts of, various questions as to why the ratings are going down. It seems to be a perfect thing to keep people excited, gives them something to take their mind off of a few of the things that are going on in society these days. Would these ratings, do they concern you enough that maybe you would look outside of sports a little bit more so, and maybe look to influencers, maybe look to musicians, maybe look to entertainment celebrities a little bit more so? And how do you gauge that? I mean, I know both of the businesses seem to have a very big sports take, but how do you gauge that, and where do you think that's going to go for you? Dan, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I will say it's obviously a challenge. For us, it's even more if you're selling a course on how to snowboard and there's no half pipes open in the US, your market is obviously a little different. We went into our business realizing that our courses were going to be split into two different topics. So half of our course would be how to learn how to snowboard safely from Shaun White. The other course applies to other skills that you can actually learn from Shaun, things like creativity, overcoming adversity, or goal setting. For us, we've realized that some of our sports, things like swimming or volleyball, in parts of the world, you can do those sports COVIDly safe, or they're at least happening in parts of the world. For other sports, we know many high school football seasons have been canceled, or we know that many, as I said, many half pipes are closed from a snowboarding perspective. For us, it's thinking about how do we continue to market our product? How do we market it in a different way? But more importantly, we have to be relevant to our consumer. If they're not thinking about lacing up and playing football with an organized team this year, we're trying to make sure that we're marketing them in a way that's relevant to them so they care about our product. But it also fulfills a need that they have, which is either entertainment, learning new skills while they're not playing, or teaching them skills that are relevant to their football career or passion, even though they may not necessarily be playing as a part of a team this year.
Tracy?
Yeah, I would say for us and for our product, so sticking with sports and athletes is really critical and important, because our product Level Select is, a pain relief product, a sports recovery product. So obviously professional athletes resonate the most. So we're, sticking to that versus looking at maybe other celebrities in this landscape that we're in. And I guess we've been, we haven't been too concerned about, the direct impact of ratings going down. But as I mentioned before, the concerning side for us is it has limited some of those PR opportunities or media opportunities for our athletes. The flip side of that is as the different seasons have been adjusted a little bit for the different sports, there is sometimes better availability with some of our athletes to do other things, maybe not out in the media or in PR, but we can leverage, their social media following and really leverage what they're doing to stay relevant with their audience in these times. And so we try to just find ways around it and stick to that.
Interesting. All right, I think we have time for one more, and it's always kind of one of my favorite things to ask is, I want to get, obviously we're talking to two professionals who've done a lot of, have a lot of experience in the world of sports marketing. Give us your favorite campaign that maybe you've seen recently. Could be one of yours, but it could also be, it could be one of ours, that you've seen in the industry that you really liked, whether it's sports, whether it's entertainment, whether it's music, a campaign that really resonated with you and why. It could be something, again, that's on air now, or it could be something previous. Tracy, I'll throw that one to you first.
Yeah, I will just, I guess, biasly, I'll say our campaign that we just created, because it was really a work in progress, and we had to work around a lot of challenges with COVID. And I'm also sharing this just so hopefully everyone goes out and goes to our YouTube channel and checks it out, because I'd love to hear what people think about it. So we just started airing it a couple weeks ago, but it features, our athletes. And one of the challenges we have in this space, in the CBD space, it's a very new industry. You can't really make claims about your product. We know our product works wonders. We have testing on it, but because of the FDA regulations, there are things we have to be cautious about saying. So we're very challenged with not being able to make claims, and therefore we even leverage, lean on our athletes more and their testimonials to support that. So we tried to create a spot around that, and again, found ways in this challenging environment to do so. So we're really, really proud of it, really excited about using the athletes and getting it launched. And it's our first launch into national TV as Cadenwood and as the Level Select brand. So that one's near and dear to my heart right now, and I'd love for people to check it out, and would love to hear feedback too.
Good self-promotion, Tracy. We like that. It's always good. Always needed here. Dan, what about you?
You know, one of my favorite campaigns of all time comes from Nike, the Greatness campaign. For me, and I hope I quoted that right. The reason I love that campaign is it highlights the impact of sports on everyday people. So how you can find your inner strength, how you can overcome challenges, why sports and sports marketing is not limited to the top 1% of the 1% of athletes who get paid millions of dollars for it. And I think that's a lot of what inspires us at the Skills all the time is our athletes are great and we love telling their stories. But the most impactful thing is we hope in a year or two that our advertising is telling the story of the 16-year-old girl that we heard from last week in Toronto who made a volleyball team because she watched Carrie Walsh's class and it inspired her and it gave her the courage to go out and try out for a new team. And for us, sports marketing is so much more than having an athlete say, I love this product, you should try it. It's how do we convince a customer or convince a human being that they can learn from someone that they see on TV every Sunday to make a change in their life, whether it's big or small. That's what we're all about, is inspiring that change, hopefully seeing it, and then having the ability to tell off how someone's truly changed their life from viewing our product. So hopefully a little bit of a plug there, but for me, it's all about that great Nike work that I believe came out of Wyden a number of years ago.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, I think that about does it for our group. I want to thank Tracy Mason, VP General Manager of Cadenwood, Dan Goldstein, VP of Marketing at The Skills. Hopefully some good insights to pass along to people. And thanks both for joining, and we really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. This is great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys all so much for being here. Great session moderated by Doug today. And huge thank you to Tracy and Dan for kicking us off today. And we're moving right into our next and final panel featuring another great group of speakers. I'm thrilled to welcome to the virtual stage Ryan Eckel, the brand president at Tracksmith, Tara McRae, the chief marketing officer at TB12, and Todd Mullaney, the vice president of marketing at Noble. And their panel will be moderated by Andrew Cohen, the senior vice president, group account director at the strategic agency. Welcome, all of you. Hi, Ryan. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
Glad to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Our last, but certainly not the least, panel for our two-day sports marketing upfront kickoff. So we're really glad to have all of you guys here today. And Andrew, I see you're on now, so I'll kick it over to you guys and let you take it away.
Thank you, Emily, so much. Welcome, everyone. As Emily mentioned, my name is Andrew Cohen. I'm with the strategic agency. I want to welcome Tara McRae from TB12, Ryan Eckel from Tracksmith, and Tom Laney from Noble. How are you doing, everyone? Happy Friday.
Good. Same to you.
Friday the 13th. Thank you.
So we're here to talk about doing more with less. Not that we're all doing the best that we can in these crazy days. But Tara, I thought we would start it off with you, put you in the leadoff spot.
Sure.
Obviously, TB12 has Tom Brady in its name and is its founder and in its ethos. You know, some might say that that's a pretty good head start in terms of establishing a brand and doing more with a lot. So how do you work with the Tom Brady factor in doing more with less?
Yeah, the Tom Brady factor is it's it's a blessing and a curse all at once. No, it's remarkable. I think when we talk about doing more with less, TB12 is absolutely a startup compared to the other brands that I've been at, whether it be Clark's or where Ryan and I worked together at Puma many years ago, much larger brands. So we get viewed, everybody thinks that we're a much bigger brand that we are because of Tom Brady. But I have the very same struggles and challenges and excitement that all the other startups have. The one benefit I do have is that with having Tom Brady, who's not only obviously a co-founder of the brand, but he's also extremely, extremely passionate about TB12. So he uses his own personal passion for it for promotion. So we absolutely do benefit from that. So, I mean, where a lot of other startups have to build up that, at the drop of a dime, he can reach millions and millions of people to promote something that we're working on. So there's definitely a benefit to having Tom intimately involved in the brand.
Sorry about the mute.
That's okay.
Do you find that having it at your disposal, people will think you are probably bigger than you are, or have bigger budget than you have? Not to get into your budgetary system, but clearly him being a global brand, there's instant credibility, so people might think you might be bigger than you are.
Yeah, people do think we are much bigger because of that, and the eyeballs that we get. But it does remind me, years ago, I mentioned Ryan and I spent many years, both of us, over at Puma. And I mean, it was a big company compared to where I am right now, but it wasn't big in comparison to the competitive set. And people always thought that we were so much bigger than we actually were at Puma because of what we did, and the disruption that we did within the markets that we played in. Not dissimilar to what I'm doing at TB12 right now. You're on mute again, Andrew.
Of course I am. Todd, you came from Reebok, obviously another global brand and a global company. What lessons were you able to bring from Reebok to Noble, and then how can you leverage them with a less is more attitude?
Yeah, sure. So one clarifying point on that, I actually am not from Reebok, but Marcus Wilson and Michael Schaefer, who are the co-founders of Noble, and the three of us worked together when we started the brand. We're both previously executives at Reebok in a past life. So I was been with them from the beginning, and have certainly heard some of the war stories of being a part of the big brands. But I myself actually have an entrepreneurial background, had started a couple of my own brands in the apparel space in college and thereafter, and also spent a few years in more traditional sports marketing, working for the New England Patriots. So I take kind of a little bit of all of those things into my role at Noble. While we don't have Tom Brady, we do have a portfolio of athletes that we work with, some on a product specific basis and some on a formal basis. But what's unique about us is that when you think about pro athletes, footwear and apparel is the category for them from a sponsorship perspective. So as we've scaled, certainly our budgets have increased, but certainly we're not Reebok, we are not Nike, and we've had to do things differently. So we've really focused on the content side of storytelling with athletes, with ambassadors, and really leaned into content as our approach, and have had quite a bit of success doing that.
Do you find that because shoes and apparel is such a personal choice from the athletes, it gives you more of a authenticity?
No doubt. I mean, a lot of people, consider it part of their identity. They're living and breathing in this stuff every day. They're training in it. They're competing in it, and they're also hanging around in it. And it's a big reflection of kind of what their interests are and what their priorities are is kind of their partner from an apparel and footwear perspective. So we definitely don't take that lightly.
And speaking of apparel and footwear perspective, Ryan with Tracksmith, obviously you guys are a very well-known staple within that racing community. My assumption is that you want to try to, like every company, grow outside of that bubble. So how do you use your authentic buy-in from the racing community to grow that bubble? Yeah.
First of all, I gotta say, hey, Tara, it's amazing to see you. Tara and I, we go way back. We haven't seen each other in probably 10 years. So this is a cool way to have a reunion. So we've built our brand by just being true to people who are passionate about running, from product design to our communications to how we tell our stories. And what we've sort of found is that I think there's a sort of a misconception that we're only for really, 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 really serious runners, and the brand only speaks to serious runners. But
when we've shown our brand to people who would not consider themselves that, probably people who run frequently but have other things going on in their life, and they're busy people and they don't immerse in running culture 24 hours a day like some people do. But when we show them our brand, it immediately resonates with them. There's just a truth to like being an athlete and being and going through the journey that an athlete goes, whether you're a runner from high school on, or you played another sport, or you're just sort of starting your sports journey now. So what we're just trying to figure out how to do is just to amplify the brand beyond where it lives right now. And so we're trying to do it without changing anything about who we are and how we speak. And so it's just finding different voices to tap into, partnering with different media outlets. So we started to work closely with the New York Times and people like Malcolm Gladwell, who is a super passionate runner, a really fast runner. He's trying to break 5 minutes to the mile at the age of 50, but also has awareness beyond. He obviously transcends that sort of running bubble. So we're trying to find ways to amplify without diluting anything that we stand for.
You mentioned your founders and their roots at Reebok. How important is it for the top-down philosophy to be totally bought in with regards to providing the support, providing the buy-in of understanding that there might be less to play with, but the expectations are still pretty high?
Yeah, I mean, with that, we just we take the approach of, we're only going to do the things that we can absolutely commit to. And, if we can't fully commit to it, if it's not a hell yeah, we say we're not going to do it. And that over the years has required us to be extremely diligent with which opportunities are we going to pursue and which ones of those are going to be distractions. And for us, that's been product, content, and marketing. Those are the three things that we feel like we do better than anyone else. And if it doesn't fall in one of those core competencies, it had to come later, or we had to get help outside from, resourcing perspective. So I think it's really important, and it comes down to everybody being on the same page. And, obviously that started with Marcus, with Michael, with myself, and now with a much bigger team. But, really our code of conduct and what you just mentioned hasn't changed at all.
Tara, obviously everyone has been affected by COVID. Everyone's spending a lot of time at home. They can't go to a gym. The winter's coming. It's getting colder. People aren't going out, can't get outside potentially to exercise. Do you find that the TB12 method in all its products and services is getting more prevalent with regards to getting into the winter during COVID?
Yeah,
do you anticipate that?
Yeah, we had a really, really tough time when COVID hit with the business. The core of our business is our hands-on treatments with our body coaches and clients out of our performance and recovery centers. So we had to shut them down right at the start. And then when we had the ability to open them back up, they looked very different than they did. We always had virtual one-on-one coaching plans because we're obviously not going to be able to build a center in every neighborhood across the country and across the world. So virtual was always part of it. That was in the 2021 and beyond plans. So we had to accelerate that so fast. It was a matter of weeks where we just paused everything else and had to move that plan up and launch the virtual body coach client program, which has been extremely helpful. It's brought in obviously new clients all over the world, which has been fantastic, but it has changed the dynamic. As we start to look, we had a lot of our clients as we opened back up, came back in a safe environment, but it does look very different. And even opening up, we opened up a new Tampa down in Florida, obviously down in Tampa Bay, Performance and Recovery Center. And even that experience has been quite different. So I think, yeah, absolutely. It's changed dramatically the landscape and all of our partners too. So something like CrossFit or Orange Theory, et cetera, all of these, they're not competitors to TB12, they're partners of ours. What we do at TB12 is to enhance obviously the athlete and fitness enthusiast to enhance what they do for their performance. And all of those have been impacted, which means obviously our clients have been impacted as well. But what I will say is we are very, very proud of our ability to really switch on the virtual aspect of it to be able to provide that for our clients.
Do you anticipate that growing even further as we go deeper into COVID? Less retail on site and more virtual at home?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the at-home craze, that bubble, obviously with the Pelotons of the world and now the Hydros and everything else, that was growing as it was. This obviously exploded this past year. I think that's going to continue to grow. But I also think too is in due time, maybe not in the next, 1, 2, 3, even 6 months from now. But in due time, we'll be able to get back to group workouts and group training. And I think people are going to be excited to be around people when they can in a safe way. So I do think it'll build back up. It'll just take quite some time, much longer than I think we ever thought back in February or March. I do think we'll get back to that. But I also think too is virtual and at-home workouts and all of that has changed for the better. To me, it was always complementary in my personal life. Now it is kind of solo, and I think it'll come back and be complementary.
Makes sense. Ryan, you mentioned Malcolm Gladwell, who obviously is a very well-known writer. How important is it to develop those organic, almost endorsements with people that might not be a specific runner, but they're very well known? Is it kismet? I mean, obviously, you kind of fell in your lap, but how important is it to develop those types of relationships?
Yeah, I mean, with Malcolm, we found out that he was a customer. We just happened to notice his name on the customer list years ago, and we just reached out to him to start a relationship, and he was happy to engage. But I think it obviously makes it so much more authentic when that's the nature of the relationship, when somebody's already a fan of the brand and is excited to partner further. And so that's what we look for. We look for people who know us, who like us, and who want to work with us, in a deeper way. And and that goes for everything from just even podcast advertising and to, I don't know, to any other type of kind of relationship you might get into with somebody. If you need to convince them to try your product out in order to get them to kind of engage and endorse it, then it's not a good fit for us.
Gotcha. Todd, I want to talk a bit about mobile purchasing. Obviously, people are always on their phones, and they use it as a primary source for buying and selling. Is that using more with less, or is that just going where your customers are?
Yeah, I just think that's the way of life right now. I mean, since we launched in 2015, our web traffic started back then at 80% mobile, and it's only gone up. So it's north of 85% mobile now. So we optimize for mobile first, and desktop, obviously, and tablet are key. Kind of all we know from a conversion perspective. And there's a lot of tools and applications you can use to kind of reduce friction, whether it's Apple Pay or just different things like that cut out kind of steps in the process. But from a mobile perspective, that's the only way we're going to do it.
Makes sense. I have a question I was hoping each one of you could answer, so we'll go with Tara first. When you look outside of the TB12 landscape, either historically or currently, when you see campaigns do more with less, what are some of the ones that you admire and you would like to emulate?
I think my buddy Todd here. I'm a fan of both these guys and their brand, but Noble, a huge fan. I think, I spent a decade in sneakers and almost 15 years in footwear as a whole. I'm a big fan. And I think that, again, you probably would think they were much bigger with what they do. I think they do an absolutely fantastic job visually, identity-wise on who they are. The people that they have represent them from an athletic standpoint. Obviously, when they do, the product is beautiful, but when they do product marketing as well, is top notch, and it all ties together. Huge fan of Noble personally, and then professionally at TB12, we're huge fans.
I should have said the ground rules is you can't use anybody else on the panel.
It's too bad. It's too bad because I use it a lot internally.
You're embarrassing me.
I'll let it slide. But Todd and Ryan, you cannot say TB12 off your answer, by the way.
Oh man, it's a good question. I mean, for me, I'm pretty particular about kind of the brands that inspire me, and as we've grown as a company, I kind of have a list of inspiration brands from just like any category. It may not have anything to do with athletics, but one of the companies that I always kind of look to and check in with is Sweet Green. I just think they do a fantastic job with their content. And you wouldn't necessarily know it like from social media, but if you dig into their YouTube and you figure out, okay, like where are these ingredients coming from and what is their like root cause as to why their company exists, it's, you know, they're speaking a much deeper message than just you know, harvest salads. It's something that's like really rooted in their DNA, and that's something that we try to live up to also. So I would say Sweet Green.
Yeah, for me, I mean, maybe it's top of mind because this campaign just launched today, but in terms of doing more with less, I go across the pond and look at John Lewis in the UK. A retailer who every year they put out an epic holiday spot.
Yep.
It's like breathlessly awaited, and it's a moment when it launches. I don't know how much media money they spend on it, but I'm going to guess that the vast majority of views are just earned, not bought. And so in terms of storytelling, like putting everything into storytelling and into creating an incredibly emotional connection to their consumers and telling a really just the right, like just nailing the tonality for this time of year. John Lewis, I feel like, is one of the best out there.
Interesting. Tara, I wanted to come back to you real quick. Obviously, with a brand name attached to your company, I'm sure sponsorships are something that you get pitched at all the time. How do you differentiate between the Tom Brady brand and the TB12 brand with regards to people who want to partner with your company?
Yeah, it does happen a lot, and I don't want to say it's confusion, but they do look at it from a football perspective, and I think a lot of people come at us for sponsorships thinking that football is our core target. Obviously, with Tom Brady, there is that integration there, but we are a global health and wellness company. So if you know anything about the brand, having our performance and recovery centers, as I mentioned, with our body coaches, and then our vitamin and supplements line, and then our bands and our home gym equipment. So the sponsorships that come our way that are really targeted within that area and our target consumer are the ones that we tend, obviously, to speak about. But I haven't been over the past year, and even prior to me coming here, sponsorships has not been something that has been really big for us here. Yes, I'm well aware of the power behind sponsorships through my days over at Puma. But for us, it's Ryan mentioned it from a storytelling standpoint. That's what we've been focused on, is storytelling and the connection with the consumer. Luckily, we don't have to get into the realm of the sponsorships to get the eyeballs and to get the consumers, because we have one of the best, obviously, billboards in Tom Brady, and not just it's not just Tom Brady as a vehicle to connect with the consumer, but Tom Brady is our muse. The entire TB12 premise and the lifestyle is built after and modeled after Tom Brady's lifestyle and his partnership with his body coach, Alex Guerrero, which allows us to do that. But to the short of it, answer your question from a sponsorship standpoint, yes, they come at from every direction, but the ones who get it wrong come at it from a football standpoint. The ones who get it right understand who we are as a health and wellness company.
Right. Todd, I'm assuming Noble receives a healthy outpouring of people looking at for sponsorship, probably particularly on the road racing side. How important is sponsorship to your brand, and do you see that more part of your future?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, for us, the way and we do get a ton of inquiries from kind of all different sports, primarily because you're being a training brand. It kind of connects with, you know, training for football, training for a marathon, training for hockey. So we're kind of that connective tissue that we can reach them through the gym or the weight room or, you know, what have you. But, you know, when we're evaluating those things, it just comes down to like trust. Does the audience of this individual or ambassador really trust them? And you can catch on to that pretty quickly with, you know, how they've built their personal brand and how they think about content. And that's one of the key things that we've learned over time, is that the athletes that are most influential with our audience are the ones who really care about the messaging that they're putting out into the world. In more traditional sport sponsorship, you know, the athletes are having, you know, multi-million-dollar contracts with their sports league. So there, you know, you really have to have a sense of internal drive to want to build your brand on social media in such a way that your audience is going to believe you. And those are the people that we found to be most effective with kind of living up to our brand DNA.
Gotcha. Ryan, you mentioned content and creating original content and leveraging that as a major speaker for your brand. How do you approach creating content? Because we use that word so much and everyone wants to create their own content and tell stories. What stories and content have you used the most that have been most effective?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything from the way that we shoot our athletes when for our website, our photo shoots. Instead of having an athlete run back and forth 10 times to get the right shot in the right light, we just have them go out on a 12 and we just follow them the whole way and we shoot the whole thing. So it is like a photo documentary style approach that we take, and that makes it feel, I mean, it is real. It feels real because it is real. But we also look to just find ways that people emotionally connect with the sport and tell those stories, whether it's like deeper human stories or other stories of inspiration that runners that motivate runners and get them out the door. So yeah, I mean, it's like it's such a cliche to say it's about authenticity, but it is, and it's also about not putting your brand first, but by putting the story first, and by finding the right places to tell that story. Not every story is told equally well in every medium, and so it's finding the right places for the right stories, and that could be everything from like feature length films to short little essays, and we're trying to do a podcast, and we're trying to do all of it.
Yeah, I would add to that with Tracksmith, their written content is absolutely, all of the content is phenomenal, but I find that the written content is uniquely best in class. Like, honestly, that's one of the things that is a challenge these days, because it actually takes time to read something, and that's something that most people won't give up, but they do that probably better than anyone.
Thanks for that. We're blessed to have two incredibly talented writers on our team in Lee Glandorf and Andy Waterman. So I'll give them a shout out and credit for that.
And that's really interesting because, as we know, we live in a social media world, which is bite-sized pieces of content, whether it's a tweet or an Instagram or a Snapchat. And the long form, so to speak, is kind of a lost art. So the fact that you are finding so much success with that type of long form written content is pretty interesting. Yeah, I don't know if that's a question or an observation, but that certainly seems something that a vein that you guys should tap into.
Yeah, I think that our audience is so passionate that they're willing to sit down and spend time with quality content, right? And I mean, I guess that's the other thing that it sort of goes. It should go without saying, but I think a lot of times it doesn't, which is, at the end of the day, quality wins, and you're competing on the content side. You're competing against everything out there, everything that you can watch on Netflix or HBO, and you're competing for someone's time, and so you need to reward that with really high quality. So we've really focused on that, and I think that works. If you do that right, it can work in any sort of length of format.
Another question for the entire panel. We'll start with you again, Tara. 12 months from now, okay, putting COVID aside, which I know is challenging, but where would you hope TB12, the brand and the company, to be? You're on mute.
You're muted.
Sorry. The start of the year, I thought we were going to be one place, and we were in a completely different place. So I have no idea what the next year is going to bring. But we actually launched a lot of partnerships. It's pretty remarkable. This is my first, at this level in my career, my first startup. But it's been very exciting because we have the ability to get stuff done, which at a bigger company would take a year. Here, takes 6 weeks, which has been really exciting. We have a lot of big partnerships that we're working on as we speak within the nutrition category, with the Good Kitchen, from a content standpoint with our friends over at Varus, with IMG and License. So we have a lot of these. So for me, I'm really excited what the next 12 months are going to bring as all of these come to market in a big way. But I would say these guys talked a lot about storytelling and content. Those are things that we are also laser focused on as well. Content's extremely big in our world, and I know that's a word that everybody throws around. But we have have a lot of outside specialists and experts within their field, whether it's Dr. William Lee or David Sinclair within that space of nutrition and longevity that we're bringing to life. So there's a lot of good stuff going on that I'm really excited about over the next year. Getting through COVID for the next, hopefully it'll only be another 6 months or so, but getting through COVID, especially having our brick and mortar center locations and keeping those going is a big focus of ours as well.
Ryan?
I mean, I think we're all, the three of us are probably in the same boat, where we had a business that was very much in person, that, or at least we had a big in-person component of what we do. We would show up at marathon majors around the world and with pop-up events and host runs out of our store in Boston. And that was a really big piece of what we do. Obviously that's sort of on hold. I think that over the next 12 months, I mean, hopefully we see a return to in-person events, and for not just us, but just for the entire running community. I mean, running is such a social sport. It's sometimes kind of tough to slog through a winter doing a lot of miles, especially in New England in the cold. So I hope that we get back to in-person events. It looks like there might be all 6 major marathons, and that's Boston, New York, London, Chicago, Tokyo, Berlin would be in the fall next year, which would be a really exciting opportunity for the global running community to finally have something to focus on, and hopefully we can be there supporting them on the journey.
Todd?
Yeah, I mean, I echo everything that they've said about in-person events. I certainly miss them. Our community misses them. We've done our best to kind of take those digitally through, Instagram live workouts and things like that. And that, has worked really well, but I think like everything else has a shelf life, and it's bridging the gap to being able to get back together. For us as a brand, we've just signed Caleb Dressel, who, should be kind of a future Olympian in Tokyo. So we're excited to kind of tell his story between now and the Olympics, and celebrate some of the things that he's done in addition to our other athletes, but then also just continue to highlight our community of people that have endured the same things that we've all endured, and are showing just an incredible level of perseverance to get through everything that's happened over the last 9 months and what will soon be coming up on a year. And we think there's a lot of cool content opportunities there, and just try to galvanize our community as best we can.
You mentioned the Olympics, obviously a global event. How important and what kind of a bump historically have you guys gotten, and I'm really focusing on Ryan and Todd right now, have you gotten out of the Summer Olympic Games, and how important is that to be on your calendar?
I mean, for us, it's really important. I mean, it's the one time every 4 years that the world pays attention to our sport. So it's from a business perspective, I don't know that it's a massive lift, but from a storytelling perspective, from a attention perspective, which as marketers, you're always looking for these moments to grab people's attention, and it's a really big one. So we had at the marathon US marathon trials in February, which was like the last thing that happened before the world got turned upside down. At least in our world, we had this program, the OTQ program, Olympic Trial Qualifier program, where if you qualified for that race, you had a gear stipend from us. And as a result, we had more people running in our gear during the trials than any other brand did. So we had a lot of momentum that hopefully we carry through to the track and the rest of the trials, which will be in June next year, like touch wood. In the Olympics. So it's a visibility opportunity for our brand. It's a storytelling opportunity. And yeah, it's just a way to, there'll be a lot of stuff on a lot of kind of more major media moments that we could also lean into from an advertising standpoint.
Yeah, for us, it's actually kind of our first go around for some, because it will have been 5 years by next year, and our company's 5.5 years old. So the last time we, probably had a half a dozen sales. I think, to Ryan's point, there is some more mainstream advertising lift that, we're excited to test. We've had a few go arounds with this related to the CrossFit Games, which is a much smaller kind of platform. But we're excited to kind of take that storytelling approach and that athlete approach to the World Games. So that should be fun.
And Tara, not to put Mr. Brady in his retirement years right now, but clearly he is in the latter part of his career. How do you anticipate that shift from when he is no longer playing in the NFL to being a full-time 12er?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's going to be awesome. I'm excited about that. But I have zero confidence that he's going to retire anytime soon. I honestly, the man at 43 years of age, what he's capable and what he has the ability to do, I have zero confidence that when this contract is up, he'll retire. But we'll see. We'll see. But I am very excited when it is the off season. He's involved in the business all year round, but the off season obviously has more time to spend with us. His passion runs deep. For the consumer and, for all the reasons that he started the company. It's really exciting to have him around the business. So I think it's going to be good. I just have no idea when that's going to be.
I don't think anyone does. Okay, great. I believe we were going to open up to some questions right now. So I know we have one right here. How has COVID affected athlete sponsorships? Are athletes more or less willing to work with brands? Todd, you want to take it away?
Sure. So I won't get into specifics with other brands, but I will say that we found that there is a lot of opportunity in the space because just the role and the challenges that COVID has created for traditional product distribution. So one of the unfortunate things about sports marketing is that it tends to be one of the budgets that's cut early on. So for us, it's trying to kind of identify what opportunities are interesting to us, and then where can we kind of come in and be disruptive. And we've been trying to do that anyway, but this year has actually accelerated in some ways. And I think we will start to see a lot of changes from an athlete sponsorship over the next 6 to 12 months. And we're excited to participate if and when it makes sense.
Ryan, thoughts?
Yeah, I think Todd's exactly right. I think we're seeing a lot of athletes have their contracts not be renewed, and it's a shame. I think so many in the sport of running, it's really we think overly performance based on, and puts a lot of burden on athletes to perform and compete and run through injuries. And so we're trying to also be opportunistic, maybe be a little bit disruptive. I mean, we made a couple of high profile hires as full-time employees of a runner named Mary Kane, who's well known in the States, and then a guy named Nick Willis, who's a 2-time Olympic medalist, who were coming for various reasons looking for career development opportunities while they're also training for Tokyo. So we hired them and are working with them. And that was an opportunity that, it was actually kind of just as COVID was setting in, but we suspect there'll be more coming up as as budgets are slashed from companies across the country, across the world.
Great. Next question, and Tara, you can take this. What tools do these brands use to evaluate where to spend sponsorship dollars at a league, a team, or an athlete, or a market like an LA, which had recent wins for the Lakers and Dodgers?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, we're not focused on sponsorships at this time. However, we have started to work with a couple different athletes, and obviously the Tampa market as a whole has been key for us down in Florida and the expansion down there. And the athletes we work with are ones that come to us for treatment in the performance and recovery centers, whether it's somebody like a Rob Gronkowski or a Matt Frazier from CrossFit we've been working with for a handful of months. So we've started to dabble in partnerships and sponsorships in that realm. But that's really, I would say, that just started this year. That's really the first go at it. But our brand was obviously very focused on the New England area with our 2 performance and recovery centers. Our e-commerce business did serve. We actually had some really large markets out, California, Texas. We had some key markets there. But in the past year, even with the pandemic, we've started to expand down to Florida in hopes of New York and California as key markets as they come up. So I think, testing into some of the other athletes that we've been partnering with, like a Matt Frazier, Matt and Tia, both on the CrossFit side, and other athletes that within the football side that we've been working with, I think you'll start to see us expanding more in that space.
Ryan, thoughts? Tools for evaluating sponsorships?
I mean, we're starting to get more into multi-touch attribution. So we, as a way to try to get a sense on how to measure which channels are effective, which ones are working, which ones are not. At a prior company, we used media mix modeling to look at that stuff too. And so it's hard. I think evaluating sponsorships is hard. And I think a lot of times people don't. What I've seen is that brands don't know what they want to get out of it. They're not clear on the objectives. And when you're not clear on the objectives of a sponsorship, it's hard to really measure it effectively. So I think, I think we're looking at just trying to get a better sense of what the full mix does versus any one individual component of that mix. And it's tricky. I mean, in my entire career at Puma and Dick's Sporting Goods, where I was before, and now it's always hard to effectively measure it. It's a thing that's probably plaguing every aspect of marketing, to be honest, is this like kind of this feeling like accountability to measuring everything, that every dollar that you spend.
Todd, how does Noble evaluate sponsorships? And I guess I would also ask, how do you even approach it in terms of, as Ryan said, what do you want out of sponsorships?
Number one, and this is the same with like anybody we hire, but we want them to live up to the mentality of what it means to be noble.
Mhm.
It's like, numero uno, and if that doesn't work, then it's just not happening. But beyond that, there's kind of two different ways we'll think about it. One is like straight up brand lift / awareness, right? So if we have an Olympic athlete, that gives us the opportunity to kind of flow in a channel that is much bigger than where we're playing on an everyday basis. And there's a level to kind of, have new reach or growth opportunities. And that, there are instances where that may validate a sponsorship on its own. But then the other side of it is, with athletes that have, millions of Instagram followers that are people that are really dialed into them, there's very clear performance marketing metrics that you can use to measure success. And, if there aren't a lot of them, but there are instances where you can have both, like the brand lift and the performance marketing. And that's kind of the honeypot that we're always in search of, but we'll also pursue other opportunities that may fit one of the buckets and help move the brand forward.
Well, I thank you, all of you, for your participation, your insight. Emily, I guess you are here to wrap it up.
Yeah, unless you had a final question, don't let me end you guys early. But thank you all so much for being here. We had such a great day yesterday and today, having such great speakers for our sports marketing upfront. So thank you all, and hope to have you back again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks so
Andrew,
much.
for moderating. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.
Well, and thank you to all of our speakers today and yesterday, and everyone who tuned in at home for such an incredible 2-day kickoff to our sports marketing upfronts program. You'll be seeing a lot more of this content in 2021, and we're thrilled to keep working with these great speakers to bring these important discussions to you all. So we hope you'll all join us again next week for our next public live cast on Monday, November 16th, which will be all about marketing to Gen Z consumers. Such an important topic, and we have a great group of brands represented, including PepsiCo, the SEC, Stitch Fix, Warner Media, Del Taco Restaurants, Capitol Music Group, and more. So we hope to see you all then, and hope you have a great weekend coming up.